Good morning, Veritas scientists. Today is Monday, May 18th, 2020. This is going to be our last lesson about plant life cycles, and we're going to move on to learning about the solar system starting tomorrow. All right, so this lesson is called Light and Fruit Growth. We're going to learn a little bit more about what we learned on Friday about how light affects growing and about just things about color in general and how in order to have color we need light. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to kind of go back and review what we learned about pollination. We're going to learn about pollinators and how that is necessary to happen so that the plants can reproduce. And that way they can reproduce more seeds and the life cycle can continue. All right, so if pollination didn't happen, then the plants would just die at that point and they would never reproduce to have more seeds to begin this life cycle again. Okay, so we're going to kind of mix these two things that we've talked about lately. I have a really cool question that we're going to talk about at the end, and then tomorrow we're going to start something new. All right, so let's get to this vocabulary first. It says white light. So white light is light that contains all of the colors of the rainbow, such as sunlight. So sunlight is white light. It has all the colors of the rainbow in it, right? That's why when you spray a hose, you can see a rainbow, is because the white light coming from the sun is it's called refracted. It's basically changing direction when it hits the water droplets in the air, and then you can see all those colors of the rainbow. So white light, even though we can only see what looks to be either yellow or white, it has all of the colors of the rainbow. All of them are in it. We just can't see them with our eyes unless they are refracted. All right? So it says here, we only see the color that's reflected, and the other colors are absorbed. So I used this bike as an example on Friday, my orange mountain bike. I see it right now, it is orange. So that means all of the colors from this light here, that's also white light, all of the colors of the rainbow are coming down at this orange mountain bike. Every other color is being absorbed or soaked into the bike. And the one that we can see is orange. That means orange is being reflected off of the bike, and that is what comes to my eye. That's what makes it the color orange. So every other color is absorbed in there. We can't see them, but that energy is absorbed into the bike, and the only energy we see is the color orange. That's the one that is reflected. Okay, so plants use that to grow, right? All the colors that get absorbed are every color except green. That energy gets absorbed into the plant, and then the only color that's reflected back to my eye is green. And that's why when we look at plants, they are green. Okay? So we're going to use that in a little bit. We're going to kind of change topics, but I want you to think about that. When we see a green plant, it's because green is the only color being reflected back to our eye, and we see it as green. Okay? So now the second vocabulary word is pollinators. Pollinators are animals that transport or move pollen from one flower to another, such as bees, butterflies, moths, flies, beetles, wasps, birds, and some small mammals. Those are all different examples of pollinators. Okay, so the most famous pollinators are bees. Okay, but there are not the only pollinators. Lots of insects are pollinators. Lots of little birds, like hummingbirds, are pollinators, and even small mammals, but mostly insects. Okay? So what's really important about this is without pollinators, plants can't reproduce. So we need pollinators. We need bees. I tell this to Johanna all the time when she's like, oh no, it's a bee. We need bees. If we didn't have bees, pollination wouldn't happen and all the plants would die. Okay? So without pollination or without pollinators doing that job, plants cannot reproduce and they would not have any more plants. Okay, so we start the life cycle of a plant. It starts as a seed. Seed gets germinated. Then the roots and the stems start to grow. Then the leaves start to grow and photosynthesis happens. So more and more and more leaves grow and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Then when the light starts to become the right amount of light for flowers to be created, right? All plants are different, but some plants need 9 or 10 hours of sunlight, and then when that happens, they will start flowering. Some of them need 15 or 16 or 17 or 18 hours, and then they will start flowering. So plants can all be different, and that's why like sometimes you look out in the spring and some plants are flowering, others don't flower until the summer, and others don't flower until the fall, right? Because different plants depend on how much sunlight they have will put it into flowering okay? So after those flowers are created, they attract the pollinators. Now the pollinators, these bugs and bees and other little mammals and birds, are coming and they are taking the pollen from one flower. They're going to go get some pollen on themselves and they're going to fly over to the next flower. They're trying to drink the nectar that is created here. It's like a sweet sugar that they drink. So the bee will come in here, the bee will drink the nectar, and then the bee will go over and get more nectar from this one. And in doing that, it's going to bring the pollen from this one over to this flower. And that's going to pollinate this flower. Then the bee's going to fly to the next flower, trying to get some more nectar. And the bee's going to get that pollen from here and from here over to here now. And then this will be pollinated. And then they keep going around all day long. They go from flower to flower to flower. Then they'll go to a different tree. And they'll go from flower to flower to flower. And they're drinking the nectar, but in doing that, these pollinators are actually doing a really important job. They are pollinating these flowers, which means that the flowers will then be able to create seeds or fruit, which have seeds in them. Okay? So that's when pollination happens. And then after they have grow seeds or fruit, those plants will die. And then the seeds will start the cycle over again, and this life cycle will continue. Then they'll reproduce here in number 6, make some more seeds, and then it will start over again. Okay, so that is the life cycle of plants. They really need pollinators to make the pollination happen between steps 5 and 6. And then when we get pollination to happen, that's when the seeds happen, and that's when these plants can reproduce. Okay, so that's a little bit of a review of things that we've already talked about. Okay, let me get set here. Okay, so now I have a question. And I'm going to teach you some stuff in this. I'm not going to wait till tomorrow because this is our last lesson with this. Okay? So it says, what if you lived in northern Canada and wanted to grow strawberries? You don't know much about strawberries, so I'm going to tell you a few facts. For strawberries to grow, they need 10 hours of sunlight and 14 hours of darkness. And what's really, really important is that they get 14 hours of darkness. They need 10 hours of sunlight. Yes, that's important. If they only have 9 or 8 hours of sunlight, they're not going to grow. They need sunlight in order to grow. But something they also need is 14 hours of darkness. Okay? If their sleep, we'll call the darkness sleep, if their sleep gets interrupted by light, they will stop growing. So if you were a farmer and you lived in northern Canada, you don't have 10 hours of sunlight every day, right? It's dark up there a lot of the time. So you're not going to be able to have enough sunlight, okay? You'll have enough darkness, but it's dark almost all the time at certain times of the year. So what if you wanted to grow strawberries? You're going to have to grow them inside. It's too cold up there. The cold, as soon as the temperature drops below 32 degrees, then those strawberries are going to die. So you can't just grow them outside because they're going to die. Even if they had enough sunlight, they're going to die from the cold. So thinking about this, that if their darkness gets interrupted, they'll stop growing. I want you to think about this question. How could you ensure that the strawberries don't get ruined by light exposure? Okay, so we're kind of at the point where we live in northern Canada. It's cold up there. The days are short. There's not very much sunlight at certain times of the year. So if you want to grow strawberries, you're going to have to grow them indoors. You can't grow them outside. They're going to die. So you're going to grow them inside. Okay, so let me try to paint this picture a little better. I drew this picture of a strawberry farmer's house in Canada. Okay, so here's their house. They live. They got their TV. They got their bedrooms. They got their refrigerator here. So they're not going to be able to grow these strawberries up here because if their darkness gets interrupted by light, they're going to die. You turn a light on, the strawberries are going to get interrupted. Even if it's like for 1 minute, they cannot have sunlight during those 14 hours of darkness. So if you go open the fridge and the light comes out, boom, your strawberries are going to die. Right? If you go to turn on the TV, boom, strawberries are going to die. So I imagine that they would have to grow them downstairs. So this is down kind of in their basement. But down in the basement, there's a washing machine. That's where they do their laundry. So if you had to spend 14 hours every day and you're not allowed to do your laundry, think about what problems that would cause. Right? You'd be in the middle of the night trying to do laundry. And then all night you'd have to listen to the washing machine making all the noise. And then you'd have to listen to the dryer tumble, 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 right? It would keep you up all night. So you'd be in a pretty big problem if you were trying to grow strawberries, if you were a strawberry farmer living in Canada. You'd have a lot of trouble doing that. So I want you to think about what could you do to make sure that those strawberries don't get ruined by light exposure. How could you do your laundry? How could you do the laundry and not let any light hit these strawberries? Because if any light hits them for even 1 minute, those strawberries are going to die. So my question for you, I'm going to answer it in about a minute. So pause this video after I say the sentence. Think about what you could do. Using what you've learned about light, what could you do to make sure that those strawberries don't get any light hitting them when they're supposed to be sleeping for 14 hours? So pause this. I want you to write down your answer. Take about 5 minutes to do that. And I'm going to give you the answer in 10 seconds. Okay? Ready? So, you're a strawberry farmer. Here's your house. You live in your house, so you need to use light all the time. It's going to be really, really hard to have 14 hours of total darkness. Okay? If you have any light hit those strawberries, they're going to die. How could you do it? Can't have any light coming in. So, I'll be impressed if you get this. I want you to write me a comment if you get this right. So, it's dark here. So the light, we'll draw the growing light. They must have a light to help them grow these. The light is off because they are sleeping. Okay? What could you do? You got to come downstairs and you got to do laundry, but the lights are supposed to be off. How could you do that? And here's the answer. You need a green light bulb. Why would you need a green light bulb? Think about that. So when you come down these stairs, if you turned on a white light, if that was a white light bulb, if you came down and you had to do your laundry, so you turn on the white light bulb, boom, all the colors are going to be getting absorbed by these plants. Every color except green, because green gets reflected. Every other color is going to be absorbed in here. Then that energy is going to kill these strawberries because they need perfect, complete darkness. So here's what you got to do. You got to install a green light bulb. Because green light bulbs don't have white light coming out like that does. That light has every color of the rainbow coming out of it right now. If that was a green light bulb, guess what? Only green light is going to be coming out of it. So if only green light is coming down and hitting these strawberry plants, let me draw a new one just to make it a little bigger. There's my strawberry plant. If green light is coming down and hitting the strawberry plant, what's going to happen to that green light? These are green plants. What's going to happen is the green light is going to be reflected. So the green will be reflected. It will bounce off of it as if nothing ever happened. There are only green coming out of it, so the other colors of the rainbow aren't being absorbed. Nothing is being absorbed because the color of the light is green. And since these plants are green, and what we know about color is that you only see color if that color is reflected. So when we look at these plants and see green, it's because green is being reflected back to our eye. So if we have a green light bulb shining down, guess what? The green is going to be reflected off of the plants. And none of that energy is going to be absorbed into these plants, and it will be as if they are in perfect darkness. Any other color would be absorbed, and then those plants would die. The only color that's reflected is the color you see. So if you had a green light, green would be reflected off of these plants and nothing would be absorbed, and it would be as if no light was on at all. And they would survive, and you, Mr. or Mrs. or strawberry farmer of any type, would be able to grow strawberries in your basement and do your laundry at the same time. Pretty cool. A regular white light would have killed these strawberries, but a green light, that green light will be reflected from all the plants and they will be able to grow. Pretty cool. You know where I learned this was? I learned this learning about light, but also I have a neighbor a few houses down who has a green light in her backyard, and I always wondered, why does she have a green light bulb? The reason is because she has certain vegetables and certain fruits in her backyard that require certain hours of darkness. And if they don't get that darkness, then they're gonna die. So I learned that from her, and I think this is really, really cool. So I hope you enjoyed that. Tomorrow we're gonna start learning about the solar system, and we will pick it up there. All right, take care, enjoy, bye.